5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Now go home and get your fucking shine box.
Hey, welcome back. This is Go Get Your Shine Box. We're back after a couple of days off, and we're going to jump right in and touch on a little something that we weren't planning on, but it popped up last night. Paul?
Well, I would like to just have a quick discussion of where we think this goes with this raid and this unprecedented police state bullshit, if I may quote Dan Bongino. This banana republic nuttiness.
It's disgusting, is what it is.
After the past 5 years, it's clear that the Democrats and the administrative state, the national security state, are willing to do anything. We know they lie, they cheat, they steal, they'll forge documents. They've already done it against Trump multiple times in order to get warrants, FISA warrants, etc. And nothing happens to these people.
Nor did anything happen to Trump because they were all made up. Yeah.
Right. Well, they couldn't prove it, but it's enough to use the media to smear Trump, and that's what they spent 4 years doing to try and keep him from getting reelected and to keep his hands tied with all the legal lawfare.
You know, they took boxes from his house that were not open. They weren't inventoried. So they basically took boxes out of his house that nobody knows what was in the boxes. So when they bring them back to their little secret headquarters, they can say there's anything they want is in there. Who's to say?
Yeah, well, that's part of my point. Our basic assumption has to be that they would lie, plant evidence, bribe judges, whatever needed to be done.
That's historically established.
Yeah. I mean, look at Hunter Biden's laptop. The FBI had it, the security state knew it, and still, in order to get the story to go away, 50 former security experts, officials, came out and said it was Russian disinformation. Now, that was purposefully done with malice to change the outcome of American history, to change the election. These people there is no low underneath, they will slither. But anyway, in a more general sense, now they've exposed themselves. The January 6th narrative is falling apart. People don't believe it. There was another poll today. 90% of people, none of that influenced them. They think it looks like a political hunt.
Because that's exactly what it is.
Right. Yeah. So this is
not like a duck.
This is not working. So these more and more extreme methods are going to be used. My position is, now I've heard a lot of people say they won't indict Trump, they won't charge him, they won't arrest him, they won't put him in jail. I don't believe that. I believe they have no choice. And the reason they have no choice is they can't let this go. What they just did, they just can't let it go saying, oh, we found nothing. Well, yeah, there were some documents that the National Archives really...
They wouldn't even give Trump and his lawyers, they don't even have a copy of the warrant. They would not give them a copy of the warrant.
I don't know. I'm not lawyerly enough to know, what the warrant should be explicitly stating or who should get a copy. None of that matters. I'm talking big picture. My point is they have to arrest him, indict him, lock him up, whatever. And a lot of smart people I see saying that won't happen. No, that'll never happen.
Yeah,
and
including me.
I'd like to get your guys' opinions because
I think that you want to see some cities burned down. This is a reason to burn cities down.
I know, but we could say that about a half a dozen other things over the past couple of years.
Listen, you know what? I have to say that I'm starting to lean your thinking, Paul, because when a sitting president uses the FBI, the CIA, the Internal Revenue Service, uses the full weight of the government to go against his political opponent, we're done.
Yeah.
We sit back and we watch this, we're done. I mean, it's in what's happening before our eyes, before our own eyes, and we're sitting back and we're helpless.
Yeah, well, I don't. To be honest, I don't think Biden's even involved in this.
Doesn't matter.
I don't think. No, I know it doesn't matter, but it does matter because this is Obama.
Well,
yeah, of course it is.
Here's the thing:
Biden
probably didn't know anything about it.
Right.
I'm willing to bet that. But the fact is, he is the freaking president of the United States.
Yeah,
so
not really. I mean,
even if he didn't know, no. I mean, technically, he is. Period.
Yeah. But even his own people don't consider him the president.
100% responsible. He can look at you and be like,
we can't look at it that way because the ire needs to be pointed.
You're missing my point. You're completely missing my point.
All right.
Yes. I acknowledge that he's not in control of the government. He's not in control of the office. He's a stick figure. I understand that. But legally, he is responsible for everything. Maybe that's what they're going to use for his.
Oh, okay. Well, I got a solution. We'll impeach Biden and live happily ever after, and the actual people who did this go scot-free. How's that?
Well, we don't want that either.
No.
Well,
that's why we can't be looking at Biden.
What's the solution?
Well, let me just chime in here really quick, and let me just say that this is at the same time one of the most embarrassing, ridiculous gaffes that this administration's made. At the same time, it's one of the biggest public endorsements of a president running for 2024, in my opinion. Now,
a lot of people are saying they just gave Trump the victory. That's why they have to put him in jail.
No, let's get back to that, Paul. There's no upside to that for them. Now we realize they fear Donald Trump for some strange reason. Egos or whatever it is, but there's absolutely no upside to it. Could they do it? Yeah, because it's a scam. He'd get federally charged. He'd go to D.C. There'd be a sham court, a sham jury, and the whole bit. But this goes back to my theory I was talking about some time ago about pricing. And if you recall, I was comparing AAA game prices to the way they manipulate stuff. There's always, and if you notice, there's always like putting 3 pounds of crap in a 4-pound bag. There's always a limit that the people that are doing this reach, and they know that there's a limit. They physically know, mentally know, financially know, whatever you want to call it. They know that there's a limit. And in this case, like gas prices didn't stop at rising and start coming down for any other reason than the economy. Gas, I'm not going to get to the economics of that, but my point is the people that are doing this, even though Dumbo, which he's pulling the strings, and God knows that's another show. I don't know how that guy could pull anything. But anyway, they even know, and this is just my opinion. It's based on history, other than the 1 or 2 assassinations that we've had in the past century. They know that that's a bridge too far. I believe that this was their Pearl Harbor, and after it was done, they sat back and said, "Oh crap, we shouldn't have done this," for any number of reasons. They're not going to put this guy in jail. They're pretty much sure that that's it. That's it. And I did make a comment today. I said, there's a BLM and an Antifa and a whatever you want to call it on the left. Cities burned to the ground. Conservatives don't have such a thing. We're not going to take to the streets. Let's face it. Yeah, will we defend ourselves? Absolutely. But even if Donald Trump went to jail, you might see some spotty reactions. But you're not gonna see an uprising. And we've discussed offline before. If, God forbid, and this is theory and it's metaphoric, and so when the NSA is beaming down in my house, they don't kick my door in. If anything happens, it's going to be guerrilla warfare. Simply because
I had that conversation, I think, later this afternoon.
Well, I mean, I'm saying that because our illustrious commander in chief, the guy who can't put his jacket on, that guy threatened the American people, and I think it went by a lot of people. He threatened the American people when he said, "What are you going to use your Second Amendment for against a government that has armies, nukes, and jets?"
Right. Oh, I didn't forget that.
Yeah, that's a threat against the American people, and of course we're not going to. I'm not going to defend against a nuke. I mean, of course the guy's a freaking vanilla chocolate chip eating moron. But the point is, it'll be a guerrilla war, and that's pretty much all I have to say about that. And I don't want to step on your final point, Paul, but that was my piece.
My only pushback on what you said there, and I largely agree. My only pushback is I do not believe they any longer believe that there is a limit.
Fair enough.
I don't think they ever did. But something else that they shot themselves in the foot over, so to speak, is that they just what they did to Melania Trump.
Oh man!
Do you think that the women in this country that are hearing about this, how she was violated, going to her wardrobe and this is something that that really screwed them over, if you ask me. That's going to turn people off just for that particular reason.
Do you want to know my assessment of why CNN wasn't there first thing this morning? I mean, I don't know if I heard this or I made it up myself. I'm not sure, but I think that and this is how I know that they have limits. They sat back and said, "We're not going to do the Roger Stone setup because that'll look like it's political." I'm pretty sure that's what happened in the meeting with Garland. This was signed off by Garland, and back to the original part of this conversation, we were talking about the warrant. I know it's not important to your overall point, Paul, but a warrant to be issued has to come with an affidavit first. That affidavit is the explicit instruction for why there should be a warrant.
Correct. But they don't have to give that affidavit to the person being served.
No, absolutely no.
They have to give them the warrant.
The legal battle will prove the affidavit out, but that's going to be a problem. And I think this is their Pearl Harbor. I think they're saying, "Oh God, what did we do?" Look, because let's face it. Donald Trump invited the FBI. In fact, the FBI was in Mar-a-Lago a couple of months ago, going through the records.
Right.
Already.
They told him that he didn't have enough security. He bought a safe. They added padlocks to secure.
Well, yeah. Over and above the overall overlurching concern I have is, why is anybody telling a former president of the United States that this is who's being guarded by the Secret Service, by the way, with automatic weapons on a daily basis. So this is, I again, you can push back on this, but I think
they peeled his safe.
Yeah. Well, they brought a safe cracker.
Whatever. Yeah, it's the same thing, a technical term, but they cracked his safe. What are you kidding me? What are they looking for?
I heard that there was nothing in the safe but pictures of Hunter Biden smoking crack.
Yeah, that would be a pretty good troll.
Yeah.
You got to admit. That's another thing. Now, I find this to be unlikely, but did you see the Newsweek article where the FBI had a mole inside Trump's place down in Mar-a-Lago?
Yep. Heard that too.
What if this is some sort of, what if Trump baited them into doing this?
That's possible. I'm having a mole in that's worse than espionage. That's a federal employee spying on an ex-president. That I'm pretty sure that falls on pretty close under getting freaking hung.
Yeah, but they don't pay for that.
Well, hey, click in if you think anybody's going to be held responsible for this. Just say yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's what
the only way this gets held responsible is if there are public tribunals, and I would doubt that happens. I mean, that's my wish, but
Yeah.
I doubt we get there. Like,
Well, I was saying earlier, how often do you have to say, boy, they do that kind of thing in a third world country, before you turn around, step out your door, and you say, we are a third world country.
yeah, and this is a good segue into our Project Mockingbird, because our media is effectively state media. It's Pravda. It is, Russian state media, Chinese state media. That is what we have. Our mainstream media, Washington Post, New York Times,
And this is
CNN.
the culmination, and this is the end times of that.
Yeah.
All right, can we take a breath for a second here? I wanted to thank Jim for my what are they, Glencairn glasses?
Glencairn
Glasses, and a word from our sponsor, Whistle Pig 18 Double Malt 18-year-old second edition rye, which I will be sampling in my new glasses, while we're having this discussion.
Very nice, very nice.
Okay. Well, I'm cracking open my Poland Spring.
Is that a vintage Poland Spring, or
Last week, I believe.
Double filtered though?
Yeah.
I bet. Yeah. Excellent. I just had a throat lozenge because I spent most of the day on the phone communicating with morons, and
Yeah.
and now my throat is dry. So that being said,
And your patience is frazzled.
yeah. And if anybody's listening that thinks that they were one of the morons on the phone, they probably were not. So,
Okay.
but
Okay, now, so
anyway,
how's everybody doing anyway? How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm a little bit pissed off, but
It's strange. I'm beyond pissed off. I feel nothing inside. Like darkness is all that. It's like cold.
yeah.
well, I reacted because I react to these things,
Yeah.
and then I was looking around and I saw Donald Maximus Trump tweeting out or truthing out whatever they call it, endorsements, and we won this and we won that, and I was like, damn, son, he doesn't seem that concerned about it. Why should I be that concerned about it? So that guy is just moving along, the most investigated person in the country of all times. And I'm pretty sure he's just going to walk away from this, because this is just nothing more than a continuation of our corrupt government being afraid of opposition.
Think
How
about
can you
this.
investigate somebody as much and as long as they have and not find anything?
Because there's
Yeah.
willing accomplices. That's how. That's all.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, come on. He was a New York real estate developer. You know what kind of people he had to deal with?
And he's got no
This guy-
skeletons.
This
Yeah.
guy must be a damn Boy Scout.
Yeah.
For them not, I mean, they had hundreds of investigators, attorneys who hate him with a passion, a burning passion, and they came up with nothing.
And they're trying to embarrass. They're trying to embarrass a guy who just simply can't be embarrassed.
Right.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. People get embarrassed when somebody gossips about them or whatever, or you hear some gossip on the news. Who's the guy who knows whether that's true or bullshit? The guy they're gossiping about.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing here. Trump knows, whether there's anything there or not. That's why he's so calm.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
does not preclude them from manufacturing stuff.
Oh no, he put that out right away because he dropped this. The guy's not he's not stupid. He follows his own book.
Yeah.
He put that out there right away because it's almost
Proactive.
checkmate.
Yeah.
Because now what are they going to do? Say they found evidence? Wait a minute. I already told you it was you were going to fabricate it. Because whoever makes it to the courtroom first. That there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, the problem is the courtroom. Any courtroom Trump's going to get involved in
Well,
is going to be in
yeah.
D.C. and the jurors don't even need to hear an argument. They're all going to convict him anyway.
Well, quite conceivably, he could, with the lawyers he has, he could stretch that out for years and quite possibly into the second term.
Yeah. Well,
and there is no constitutional amendment, law, clause, or anything that says he can't run for office if he's if he's being investigated.
right.
He has to be found guilty of something. So I'm telling you, anyway, I think it's going to backfire.
I hope so.
We shall see.
The government you don't know. You know. Anyway, Mockingbird definition. I dug this up and I thought this was kind of clever. If I can read it. A people pleaser personality. A person that takes on the personality of anyone that they are around during that period of time, having no real personality of their own. And that kind of makes sense. I'm going to read a little bit of this and we can go back and forth so as not to bore everybody to death. But in the early 50s, the CIA launched a propaganda program put together utilizing the expansive media machine within the United States, which is something people don't know. This program, called Operation Mockingbird, is probably the most important vehicle ever for the power that is behind the CIA to control and manipulate the public. Mockingbird is perhaps the most devastating intel project ever inflicted on the American people and the democracy in the United States. Today, most people have never heard of it. Pretty much, the mainstream media was pulled into this back in its inception. The one factor that made the reality possible is the mainstream media and how it was in bed with the Central Intelligence Agency, or as the CIA as we know it, since the early 50s. Without the work of Senator Frank Church, most of you guys out there, I hope have heard of the Church Committee, finding out about the program, and he researched it, and they had hearings. But just going to give you a little background and a little anecdotal story, and then I have a clip, but you can also jump in as we go. Operation Mockingbird was not just another covert program in the Cold War, analyzing what it could to add already tilted balance of power in the United States. It makes perhaps the most severe blow to the democratic process of all America's history, and we're seeing the result of it today. There are hundreds of examples, but we'll just play around with a couple of main examples. And one happens to do with the Angolan War that popped up right after Vietnam. It went on for 25 years until Frank Church and his committee exposed it in the 70s. 1977, the Rolling Stones ran an article, and guess who was the journalist on that?
Bernstein?
You're correct. Carl Bernstein. Yep. This is back when he was still a journalist.
Yeah. I wonder if this was worse than Watergate.
Yeah, that's a good reference. American journalists themselves, thought to be trusted friends of the agency, performed occasional favors in the national interest. Of course, it's the national interest. They did this from covering war in Europe and to the Pacific. And they work closely with the this is another semi-familiar company, the Office of Strategic Service, the OSS, which was the predecessor in 1947. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to jump down and one of the main guys, his name was Frank Wisner. He's dead now, I believe. He was one of the founding officers of the CIA, and he played a major role in CIA operations throughout the 50s. And he was part and parcel the author of Mockingbird. And there's a bunch of different names, and like I said, I don't want to get too deep into it, but what happened was, I'm going to jump past Vietnam, and of course we had to be in a war because most of the time we have warmongers in office. When that war, if you want to call it that, ended, there was literally thousands of propagandists from both sides left over.
And they needed a job. Well, in Angola, we had a CIA-backed wannabe ruler, king, whatever they called him back then. And he was on the payroll for some 12 years. And I forget his name, but the names really aren't that important. I think I can pronounce it. Mbabe Mumgumgo.
Yes, something like that. That was probably pretty accurate. I could dig it up. But the fact of the matter is, the opponents were, there was a commie, and then there was another. There was triplets pretty much going after this. Well, John Stockwell, who we're going to talk about a little bit later, was the ringleader out there. He was the CIA guy. And by the way, if anybody wants to know, if you're actually employed, you're a CIA officer. If you're an asset, you're an agent or an asset or any other word. Just to get that clear. Well, John Stockwell had connections with some European newsrooms and some other areas, and he would wittingly and unwittingly, or let me take that back. He would send stories out or have propagandists make stories and send them out to these major outlets. These major outlets may or may not have known that it was legit. As a result, what is now the AP picked these stories up, because now they're picking these stories up from what is a legitimate outfit. So it's kind of a propaganda money laundering.
Yeah.
So now it's all over the world. And as this went on, and there's an example. Like I said, I'm not going to get into it. It was the I believe it was the Angolan women firing squad that executed the Cuban rapists. The problem with that story was there was never any Cubans involved. The entire thing was fabricated. In fact, the Cubans didn't come to Angola until after the story was released. The point of this whole thing is that was the inception of the Mockingbird media that we see today. And if you don't think it's true, put on any channel after a main event, a major news event, and they practically, if they don't, repeat everything on individual channel basis verbatim, right?
Yeah.
Like they're reading it off a bullet point.
They do that now.
Well, that's the point.
That's the point.
Yeah.
They do that for every stinking thing. It's like,
I mean, that was the very basis of Operation Hurricane, where where the Clintons fed information to news outlets. News outlets go to the FBI. The FBI picks it up and open an investigation. It's a self-reinforcing circle jerk of the disfigured and incestuous deep state, whatever you want to call it.
And it comes out of the same handbook. This goes back to the OSS, going to the CIA. This was developed. This was developed for a particular reason, and the reason was to disseminate lies. You could call it anything you want, but the purpose was to make it look like legitimate news agencies were reporting legitimate news.
Right.
Which makes you wonder if anything we've heard since we were breathing is true.
Yeah, that's right. And here's an interesting aside. Back in the 50s, when McCarthy was going after the communists, the CIA went after the FBI and started smearing McCarthy and some other guys. I don't remember the whole story, but they went after the FBI basically. And McCarthy was right. I mean, we can all see that now. He was demonized.
He was late to the game, but he was right.
Yeah. So.
And they were Marxists. They weren't communists.
But now they're on the same team. The FBI, DOJ, CIA.
Yeah, that's a show there that I'd have to do a deep dive, and as we probably all will, because that I don't understand that. Yeah, I mean I do, but I don't, and I don't want to oversimplify it. But I do want to play this clip, and this is John Stockwell, which he's openly. This is years later. He's openly talking about how Mockingbird worked.
Do you know when this clip is from?
There are other functions, however, some of them more legitimate than others. One is to run secret wars. Another thing is to disseminate propaganda to influence people's minds. And this is a major function of the CIA. And unfortunately, of course, it overlaps into the gathering of information. You have contact with a journalist. You will give him true stories. You'll get information from him. You'll also give him false stories. You also work on their human vulnerabilities to recruit them in a classic sense, to make them your agent so that you can control what they do. So you don't have to set them up sort of, by putting one over on them. So you can say, here, plant this one next Tuesday.
Can you do this with responsible reporters?
Yes, the Church Committee brought it out in 1975, and then Woodward and Bernstein put an article in Rolling Stone a couple of years later. 400 journalists cooperating with the CIA, including some of the biggest names in the business, to consciously introduce the stories into the press.
Well, give me a concrete example of how you use the press this way?
Well, for example, in my war, the Angola War that I helped to manage, 1/3 of my staff was propaganda. I had propagandists all over the world, principally in London, Kinshasa, and Zambia. We would take stories which we would write and put them in the Zambia Times, and then pull them out and send them to a journalist on our payroll in Europe. But his cover story, you see, would be that he had gotten them from his stringer in Lusaka, who had gotten them from the Zambia Times. But after that point, the journalists, Reuters and AFP, the management was not witting of it. Now, our contact man in Europe was. And we pumped just dozens of stories about Cuban atrocities, Cuban rapists. We didn't know of one single atrocity committed by the Cubans. It was pure, raw, false propaganda to create an illusion of communists, eating babies for breakfast.
It's shocking. Absolutely shocking. I believe that was the 80s.
And the Church Commission got started because of a whistleblower. Do you have that?
I do not.
I remember hearing that there was somebody blew the whistle on them, and that's what caused Church to start looking into this and to open up the investigation. But I don't know who it was.
Ironically, somebody was talking today about this mess with Trump and everything, and they did say it was I forget what senator it was talking about. We need a church committee. So this is real time.
Let me ask you. So, because of this church committee, what was the ultimate?
That's a good question.
You want to know what came of the church committee?
Yeah.
The FISA court.
Yeah.
You hear that lately?
Yeah.
That's a little corrupt. But
the rubber stamp.
The rubber stamp committee.
Here's what I'm trying to get at. Now, didn't they make it illegal? Wasn't this illegal? And didn't Obama over?
Well, Joe, it's funny you should say that. And I think what you're talking about is the rescindant of the Smith-Mundt.
This is what I wanted to get at, because I'm not clear about this, and I'm sure that a lot of our listeners are not clear about this, and I want to make it clear again.
Yes,
I'm
this
pissed off,
is why
and I want information.
This is why things have gotten worse in the last less than a decade. Do you have the Smith-Mundt and the Obama thing?
I do, and this was introduced in the House at 2012. Here's the interesting thing. Joe wants this. He wants the language. He wants to know what's going on. Well, this is called the Smith-Mundt, MUNTD, Modernization Act. Okay, like Microsoft, the federal government puts out bills, or I should say, the legislation puts out bills that you can't understand. Just like we have a bill right now that's called the reset, or what is it called? The Depression Reduction,
Inflation. But they're not calling it that anymore.
Because it's not. Yeah.
Right.
So listen to this very carefully, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to read the part that counts. Most of the bill talks about what it used to do and what it does and what it doesn't do about foreign agencies, especially Cuba. Listen to this, and I'll try to read it slow and concise. It's the third paragraph. Amends the Foreign Relations Authorization Act, fiscal years 1986 and 1987, to prohibit funds for the Department of State or the board from being used to influence public opinion or propagandizing in the United States. In parentheses, under current laws, such provisions apply to the United States Information Agency, or the USIA, close parentheses. So if you read that, it's like, oh, okay. Well, basically what it's saying is, in the previous part of the bill, all of the propaganda through the media, social media, movies, all that dissemination can be done abroad, pursuant to the act. What this is saying in the third paragraph is this amends the Foreign Relations Authorization Act. So now, essentially, you are allowed to propagandize within the confines of the United States. That's exactly what it says.
Yeah. And thank you, Obama.
Absolutely.
Obama did that.
Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah. Or as I call him, the Capuchin candidate.
But I want to make it very clear. Obama reversed it and did that. Made it illegal to do this within the United States.
Exactly. So what you were saying was a good point. What did the church committee do? Well, if this was so heinous and so bad, what did they do about it? Now, granted, it was being done overseas. It was being done to perpetrate and and start wars and end wars in some cases and conquer countries for God knows what. So it wasn't an attack on the American people per se until this. Until this. Yeah.
Until now, Obama opened the floodgates.
Yeah. Now put the pieces together and fast forward. And we have the Mockingbird media.
Yeah, and sorry to bring this up, but the Mockingbird media also has their claws into Google, Twitter.
Oh, absolutely.
Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a matter of fact, a lot of these sites were funded and founded with the cooperation of things like DARPA or the
the internet was it? Yeah, altogether.
Yeah.
Do you think a lizard like the Facebook guy? Well, I forget his name. Probably mentally blocking it out.
Zuckerberg.
Yeah, the Zuckerberg. Do you think that if he was approached by a $150 wearing suit guy, from the Central Intelligence Agency, he wouldn't be flattered? The guy takes pictures of himself practicing throwing spears like he's a chucker. He would freaking bend over backwards, and he'd probably say, "Yeah, if you swear me in and give me a badge, I'll do anything."
Right.
The guy, unlike most people think, isn't that bright. But there's a clip from C-SPAN that actually, and it's a little, it's a couple minutes, but it's recent. This is 2019, I believe, and you have to pay a particular attention to Eleanor Clip. And I know not watching it's a little difficult, but you'll tell she's the old voice. But it's amazing how she's like. And Joe, you were talking about the Kennedy assassination. She was talking about conspiracy theories, and then the other girl, and I'm kind of paraphrasing. The other girl comes back and says, "Well, you keep saying conspiracy theories, but this stuff's being proven out."
Absolutely.
So let me play this clip.
Got a couple more calls in. Let's hear from Dan in Georgetown, Massachusetts. Dan, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for having me on this morning. One thing I realized at a young age with politics in this country is that you can't really listen to what people say. It's a lot of nonsense in there. You have to look at actions, what actually happened. And I think if people kind of put their personal feelings behind and just focused on what happens, we'd be a lot better off. I feel there's a lot of personal hatred to Trump, which to me just falls in the category of hatred. You have to look at what has happened. We'll do a little comparison of our last two presidents and how they started off. Trump is out of the atmosphere as far as how well he's doing compared to the last two presidents, if you look at things side by side. That's one point. A previous caller mentioned something very important that you guys completely brushed over, and that's something that was slipped into the 2012 NDAA. It was the rescinding of the Smith-Mundt Act. And what this has done is open the floodgates for the media to basically lie to us if it's in the best interest of the government. So what we're witnessing here is the deep state aligned with media, and they have a free pass. We're a lot of questionable things happening in this country. We got mass shootings. I'm sorry to say these things are questionable. And under this law, the rescinding of the Smith-Mundt Act, in reality, the government could be working with media to deceive us. And it's legal. Talk about the rescinding of the Smith-Mundt Act, please.
Dan, we'll let you go there. Dan in Massachusetts, Eleanor Clift, any thoughts on what you heard?
I think that sounds to be like a conspiracy theory that's alive and well. I'm not going to comment on it.
Cheryl Chumley?
I'm not familiar with that particular act, but I will say that back in the 1950s, there was that whole Operation Mockingbird thing, which was never formally confirmed by the CIA. But of course, that was the operation where CIA operatives worked with U.S. media to shape the messages that came out of the media. And it was purportedly supposed to have hit at hundreds of journalists and reporters. And that's something that has been reported and used in different terms.
What was the message that they were trying to get across in this?
It varied. It went on for years, and it wasn't just domestic, but it was also to slant and shape how government officials worked with foreign officials as well.
Well,
she knew exactly.
She
knows exactly
a pillar in the reporting society, and she knew exactly what's going on. Correct, and I thought that was a pretty good tie-in to what we were talking about.
Yeah.
That was 2019.
Yeah, dead on. Makes you nauseous a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking up the CIA and DARPA's ties to the founding of Facebook.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
They have a front company called InQtel that's funded off of CIA's black budget, so they don't have to answer any questions. Now, from what I recall, DARPA was funding a social media thing called LifeLog. Now, it would be just what it sounds like. It would be pictures, posts, information of citizens. And they closed that program. I swear it was within 2 days of Facebook being founded with a $400 million boost, probably from InQtel or one of these cutouts from DARPA.
Yeah, well, I mean, why not? A part of the bullet points, from the implications, photo editors that manipulate images, and there's a name for encoding images, and I forget what it is off the top of my head. Agencies infiltrating social media organizations that project false images and scenarios. I mean, we just saw what was within the past few years. Remember I think it was CNN when the reporter was in a canoe acting like the flood was 6 feet deep, and behind her comes this guy walking through.
Yeah, right.
Okay, sorry, can I jump in?
Yeah.
Okay, there was a firestorm of criticism over LifeLog, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. The project was publicly nixed on February 4th, 2004. DARPA never provided an explanation for its quiet move to shutter LifeLog, with a spokesperson stating only that it was related to, quote, a change in priorities, close quote, for the agency. Fortuitously, for those supporting the goals and ambitions of LifeLog, a company that turned out to be its private sector analog was born on the same day that LifeLog's cancellation was announced. On February 4, 2004, what is now the world's largest social network, Facebook, launched its website.
Well, don't you think? Well, I guess this is your whole point, that the CIA or the FBI or whatever organization, fill in the blank, runs and operates and created and is Facebook, and Zuckerberg is just a figurehead.
Yeah, or an asset of some sort, And you know what the great part about that is? It's a beautiful thing when you think about it. Yeah. There's millions of people that voluntarily sign up. So
yeah.
You can't make that up.
No.
It would be one thing entirely if the federal government forced you to carry a phone around that monitored you. But when they put something out there and they say, hey, sign up, and you do it, then what? So it's an interesting circle we talked about tonight, though, because it started with the Trump thing that we had no idea what was going to happen, because we're not necessarily real time. We already had this Operation Mockingbird plan, and it was a cursory look into it. We can get deeper, but it gets dry, and I don't really, this is about as dry as I want to be honest with you. But it is important.
Yeah, and the thing is, we just want to try and expose a few more people to what our government really is.
Yeah.
Yes. Those of us partaking in this podcast, we grew up sort of believing, rah rah America, we're good, our government maybe does some screwy things, but we're the good guys in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm starting to question whether there are any good guys,
Well, it boils down to a couple of different things. One is money, and one is this: we've always been in a perpetual battle of good versus evil.
Yeah,
and that's not oversimplifying it,
no.
because it's a fact. There's ever since Cain and Abel. There's been war, and unfortunately, most of what we see in the world today is man-made. I mean, and I don't want to deviate, but when you see a commercial or hear a commercial, I should say, on the radio or whatever, talking about starvation in America, it makes me sick. It makes me sick. Now, granted, I couldn't finish my Jimmy John sub because I was getting full, but at the same time, should I hear a story about somebody starving in the United States of America? So, like I said earlier, when you keep saying, hey, they do that in third world countries, and then you step out of your door one day and you say, hey, this is a third world country, we got a problem.
Yeah. Well, they're actively turning us into a third world country, and it's economic mostly. I mean, there are people who want the country destroyed. So they did the whole immigration thing. Yeah. And by the way, propagandized us into, we're a nation of immigrants, right. Melting pot, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Sorry. That's not how humanity works.
Oh, it's
that's
not true either. Yeah.
That's how you destroy nations. But they need bodies. They need bodies to be the serfs,
It's fortunately, I guess you'd say fortunately, in our particular time frame that we're on this earth, we're seeing a lot of stuff happen in the 21st century, and I'll use that word again. Fortunately for us, the ones that are in charge and are pulling this off or trying to pull this off aren't the brightest. If you had a John Stockwell, for example, or a what's his name from the OSS today doing this stuff, we wouldn't even have a chance. We wouldn't even have a chance. And Obama's IQ is probably somewhere around. I'll give him a few points, somewhere around 93 or 94. He's an affirmative action baby, that's and I hate to say that lightly, but it's incredibly true. And I don't say that about people if I don't mean it. It's incredibly true. This guy, he skated in, and should we be talking about him, or is he stuck in my head? No, but I knew from the second that Hillary Clinton was bumped out of her gift, and this junior senator popped up, and nobody ever heard of him before. And then I found out his entire fetish story, because some of us actually did research, and he winds up being the president. That my spidey senses went off. Even Bill Clinton, the guy who put the black eye in the White House, the most disgusting president of all times, successful in a lot of ways, but disgusting. He was the start of this in the 21st century. He started the downhill spiral. But anyway, we're going down the rabbit hole. So,
well, gentlemen, what a discussion.
So what happens now? Do more people now? Here's the thing.
I pour another whistle pig. That's what happens.
Well, you go ahead.
That's the obvious choice, right?
I call the internet and social media, I call it the tree of the knowledge of good and evil version 2.0.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Now, that's bad. We can see the results.
Yeah.
The bad part. But there are also good parts, and the good parts are that people are, not to be cliche, but getting red pilled.
Yeah.
There's and Trump did this.
Absolutely.
Trump destroyed the credibility of mainstream news for millions, maybe even billions of people. It's a worldwide thing.
Yeah.
And it's continuing because people are looking around on social media to find, independent reporters and podcasters and vloggers and whatever you want to call them, to find their information, and they find out that these stories just don't hold up. They'll come out with some either purposefully framed story that's technically true, but it's a lie by omission or by structure, in order to get you to think a certain way, because most people are short attention span. All they read is the headline,
and that's deliberate as well. That was
yeah.
And as you just spoke, if you listen to anything we just talked about for the past 40 minutes or so, everything comes back to that. You can no longer listen or watch, I don't care who it is, without a question behind it.
Right. Not only that, but most of the media, you have to assume whatever you hear is dishonest in some way.
Yep. You won't hear people on the mainstream media. You won't hear people on the off mainstream media. You'll hear very, very few people at all talking about this stuff.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I'm including Fox News in here.
Oh, absolutely.
They won't discuss things that need to be discussed.
No.
That's not.
Although I do like Tucker. I don't know what's up. I don't know what's up with him.
Yeah,
Jesse Waters seems to be coming alive a little bit, but I don't watch him enough to know.
He's on at 7:00. I mean, but he today on the 5, he was on fire about the whole thing. I mean,
I saw that clip. But Tucker, since they went after his wife, he seems to have changed. Now that this could all be a grift or an act or whatever, I have no way of knowing. But it is my instinct and intuition that something happened, because he should not be permitted to talk to some of the people that he does. Bolsonaro, Orban.
According to Fox's guide,
right, yeah.
And I don't think they have any problem breaking a contract, but I think it's like a lot of other media outlets, and Fox isn't obviously as bad as some, but they do recognize that he draws in money. He is the number one, in that slot,
and that matters.
Yeah.
Although it is not all that matters, because we saw what the mainstream did to get rid of Trump, and they had to know that their revenue would go down by 25%.
Yeah, ideology matters. Yeah,
ideology matters, or just taking orders from the security state upon pain of blackmail or whatever.
Right.
Whatever's held over these people, because they're all degenerate scumbags.
Yeah, that's
to think that the NSA doesn't have their phone logs or videos of them in some Washington D.C. hotel. What do you think they've got on Don Lemon? You know what I mean?
You know what? I'm not even afraid of the NSA.
Or that other twink, the Anderson Cooper.
I'm not even afraid of the NSA anymore. Now that everybody's got 2 or 3 freaking Echo devices in their house.
Yeah,
I don't have one.
Good for you.
I don't either.
Hey, Joe,
that's not true. I've got a Fire Stick. If you hold the button down, Alexa,
you can talk into
fires up. Yeah.
So the Chinese have such a database of every one of our habits. If they ever did move in, like parachute in and take over, they could come to your house. They have your address and they know what you bought last week.
Have your address? They got your damn DNA, man.
Yeah, well, they don't have mine, not that I know of.
They don't have mine either.
Oh, really? Have you ever had a blood test?
No. That's a lie.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah. Do I ever want to have a blood test? No.
Maybe not.
I do have several sets of fingerprints all over a bunch of agencies. So I mean, as far as that goes, I'm a pretty easy guy to find. Unless
I was going to say
you know.
different sets of fingerprints, or
yeah. As far as I know, they're all identical.
you got these silicone.
Yeah. I watched a lot of James Bond when I was younger. But no, I mean, yeah, you can find me if you want, but if I don't want you to find me, it's not going to happen. That's all I'm going to say about that on this broadcast. But if we don't have any way right now of reaching out to anybody saying, "Hey, do you want us to dig deeper?" or "Hey, do you want us to keep it light?" Or we can just go with our guts and just do whatever the heck we want to do, you know. But
yeah, well, I thought this would be a good introduction for people who maybe don't know, and getting feedback. Maybe we'll look into putting this audio up on a YouTube channel where we could take comments there.
That's that's my mistake. I'm going to jump in that. And Joe had a really good rant pre-recording on JFK, and I think there's almost a half an hour, at least, or part of a topic there, because he was getting really into the deep, the technicals on the rifle, and I think it was a pretty good take that I haven't heard.
I would. We could do another. We could do that another time.
Yeah, for sure.
Do we have an email address?
I do, but not the one for this podcast comes to my email. Yeah, through an alias. Yes,
we need to get a go get your shine box email address.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah,
get your shine box at protonmail.com.
And stay tuned for merch.
Yes.
All right, guys. Well, I think we did some overtime tonight, and I appreciate your time and effort. And Joe, enjoy the Glencairns.
I will. Thank you very much.
And Paul, in the near future, I hope to do a segment. If it's not going to be a combination cigar whiskey segment, it'll be one or the other, and I will be happy to send you a sample and/or bottle of what we're going to test.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I'm all over.
What am I, chopped meat? Come on.
You just got yours, dude.
Look it up.
By the way, Joe is sounding a little bit more mellow than usual, isn't he?
What the? Yeah. And anyway, I think we should on a level playing field. We should probably participate out of the same Glencairns. That's just an opinion, just so we can get a better. Oh, I'm getting a plum. You know, so we're getting a better sensation. It will be no pretentious sniffing of the whiskey.
Yeah,
if I find a plum in my whiskey, I'm sending it back.
But anyway, because after all, we want to expand and demonstrate our multi-talented facets, or multifaceted talents, or whatever the frig. So, all right, fellas. Anybody got anything to say? We're going to wrap it up.
Good night from New Germany. I said that to somebody yesterday, and they cracked up. I said that we lived in New Germany, and they just looked at me and just started cracking.
I don't understand why that's funny.
I don't either, but he thought it was funny. Probably because it's so real. It's how like when like a bad accident, you get.
Yeah, it's a train wreck. You can't help but look at it. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I will say good night, and remember, your first instinct should be to say that's bullshit, and then to go look for supporting information elsewhere and find out the truth.
And don't look at the first 2 pages of the search engine. You need to dig deeper, people.
Yeah, well, Google is just wholly converged.
Yeah. And if all else fails, give me a holler. I'll hook you up.
Right, and you could also, like, if you don't want to do research, just believe what we tell you.
Yeah, that's right.
That'll make it simple for everybody.
Yeah. And it's good practice to not believe us either. Go look it up. Do the searches. I use DuckDuckGo. There are other ones like Yandex and things that you can use. Google suppresses so much non-authorized information that it's tough, but you can still try.
And I would appreciate if somebody looked up or fact checked something we said, and they look at it, and of course, unless it's an opinion, we're stating a fact, it's going to show up as being a fact, and that's impressive, and it's empowering as well, because I wouldn't sit here and deliberately disseminate false information.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that, because being a kind of a intuitive guy, I'm kind of fast and loose, but I'm only kidding. I do actually research a lot of this stuff, so and I'm also an honest guy.
And you are the resident researcher, isn't it?
Yeah.
The resident historian, and also the man who knew too much.
Yes.
And also, I'm like George Washington. I cannot tell a lie.
Okay.
I've always been that way.
And he also carried a sidearm.
Yes, which I do not, because I'm in New Germany, let's put it this way. Let me rephrase that. It would be illegal if I were to do that in New Jersey.
Yes, and we don't break the law.
Right, and we don't lie either, so I had to fix that.
Alrighty then. Hey, Joe, I'm going to go ahead and give you the last word.
I doubt it, but okay.
Thank you for that.
Good night.
All right, good night, guys.
Good night, guys.